Hey everyone, this is Steve Segerson, owner of Legacy Classic Homes here in Dallas-Fort Worth. We are a custom home builder specializing in building custom homes on owners' lots. And this video is part of our information series where I'm attempting to just kind of help people out there who are interested in building a custom home, give you some information on the various things associated with that. This video is about one of the most important things if you are going to build your custom dream home, which is how do you find the right lot or piece of property to build your home on. The first thing may seem painfully obvious, but I'm going to talk about price. I say painfully obvious because we all want to pay as little as we can for the property we are going to buy. Who doesn't want to pay less than more? However, this is a little more specific than just trying to get the best deal on the lot. It is, how does the price of the lot come into play with the house you're looking to build? And what I mean by that is when you are doing a custom build like this and you have not purchased the land yet, you are going to, if you're like most people, you're going to have a budget. Hey, we can do a total of a $1 million build or a $2 million build, whatever this number is. And that can then help you back into how much can you spend on the lot. Or if, for example, you want to spend more on the lot than you intended, it might mean you get less home. So these are the kind of things you have to balance when looking at it. If you had a $1 million budget, you think you're looking at a home that's going to run you about $700,000 to build, that tells you need to spend no more than $300,000 on the lot. Now you may be out there looking and you come across the property of your dreams and it's $400,000. You can't get them to come off the price. Well, that's one of those things. Either your budget is going to have to go up or you may have to pull back on the house a little bit. So first thing is price. Try to speak with a builder. The kind of builder that we are, one of the issues, and I have other videos on this, is that it is impossible as a custom builder to just when people call and say, what does it cost to build a house, or what is your cost per square foot to build a house? There's not an exact number. There's no one size fits all because no two homes are the same. No two lots to build on are going to have the same amount of preparation. And so all we can do is ballpark that with you, but we can help with that. We may say, we think your home's going to cost $300 a square foot to build. That allows you to come up with a rough ballpark size of the home and an idea of where you need to be with it. So again, try to do that legwork on the front end, know what you have to spend on the house, and that will tell you what you can spend on the lot. Another thing to look out for are the utility situations. So we build a lot of homes for folks that are on acreage. Sometimes they're even on lots that are just old or they've been subdivided, and oftentimes they may be listed with a realtor and they will say things like utilities are available. That does not necessarily mean they are at the lot. We just had this with a build where the homeowner didn't realize, because he could see transformers nearby, he thought, well, there's electricity there. Well, we ended up having to pay $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 to actually have the electric company run the electric to his house. The same thing with the water. There was a main water line out front, but there wasn't what I call the tap line that came off that main line that the water meter would go to for that house. So we had to have the water department add a tap line. That can get really expensive too. It wasn't so bad with this one job, but I've seen others where it can get pricey. So you want to do your due diligence on the front end, because you may be looking at a lot that is pushing your budget, and you don't realize you're going to spend another $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 on the utility situation. So you want to know that the best that you can know ahead of time. Talk with the seller, talk with a realtor if it's listed, and if you have to, you call the designer for the electric company and the water company. Checking on sewer is important too. That's another thing, because you may be looking at a property that does not have access to sewer. When that happens, you can use a septic system, but that is an additional cost that you wouldn't have if you could hook up to the sewer. Next thing is topography. This is the lay of the land. Is it flat? Is it hilly? Is it on the side of a mountain? These things can have a huge impact on the cost to build on the lot. And as a matter of fact, they can have an impact on what people are selling a lot for or a property for. So I've had this scenario in the past where someone calls me that wants to build. They tell me they're looking at a lot in this particular subdivision, or I'm sorry, in this suburb. I know it's a higher end suburb, and when they tell me they found a lot for X, $50,000 in this suburb, I think there's something wrong with that lot, So I'll go out and look at it, and sure enough, there's a creek running through it, or it's on the side of a hill. And so what I have to explain to them is, okay, the lot may look like a good deal on the surface because it is relatively inexpensive, but you are going to have to spend another $100,000 or $150,000 to build on it. Those numbers sound extreme, but we see them all day long with these situations where, if there's a creek running through it or you're on a very steep lot, you can spend a lot of money really quick. So that $50,000 lot could be a $200,000 lot by the time you're all said and done. So topography, these kind of things are really important. The simplest way to think about it is a flat lot is going to be the least expensive to build on. When a lot's flat, all we're doing is coming in, bringing in enough dirt to build that foundation pad up. Here in Texas, everything we do is a slab on grade. We aren't doing basements. And so what we need to do is flatten it out where that foundation is going to sit on it. If the lot's flat, we have very little fill that we have to deal with. It's enough to get it maybe 12 inches high. That allows us to then do a final grade where the water drains away from the house, but it's relatively inexpensive. We could build on the side of a hill where there's a massive amount of excavation, possibly tree removal. You're probably going to need a retaining wall, drain systems, all kind of things going on that you can spend $150,000 or more. And so the topography of the lot is hugely important. It is something to pay attention to because it can have a huge effect on the overall cost of your build. I think I touched on tree removal just a minute ago, but tree removal is an important factor also. Pretty commonsensical, I guess, but if you saw a flat lot that has nothing on it, then you have less preparation to deal with. You can get into lots with a lot of trees, big trees, on the side of a hill, these kind of things, and you can just spend a lot of money on the tree removal. It's not just for the house, it's where the driveway needs to go. You are going to have to deal with, irrigation things, fencing things where trees are in the way or you're cutting through roots. You may lose some trees. Trees don't always die immediately either, and that's one of the tricky parts is, I've seen people say, I want to keep that tree that I've told them is probably a little closer to the house than it should be, and it can take 2 years for that tree to show its stress and start to die. So trees are something to pay attention to. There are parts of the country where there are trees everywhere. There's nothing you can do about it, and that's just part of the cost of building. Here in Texas, we have tree belts, so we may have an area where people are building in what's essentially a pasture land, and they have to add trees later as they live in the home. And then we have other areas right by where I live, let's say, where it's a tree belt. There's a lot of oak trees and things running through there. So that's just something to take in consideration. It can add some cost onto your build. Okay, the next thing gets into something you can't really see when you're on site, and that is easements. Easements and build lines. I'll throw them both in there. An easement is essentially a piece of land on your property, or let's say the property you're looking to buy, that has been dedicated to a different entity. So the most common thing would be a utility company. They in effect have surface rights, and more than surface rights, they can get into the dirt also, or under the ground also, for let's say their electric line. Almost all of us have utility easements on our properties. If you're living in the city or the suburbs, you may have water lines running across the front, electrical lines, phone and communication lines, things like this. And so they may have dedicated easements. You cannot build structures over those easements. You can build things that can be considered removable or non-permanent, and that can even be a driveway. If you think about it, there are a lot of driveways that cross over utility easements because the utility easement may be running across the front of the lot and the driveway has to cross it. They can, in theory, tear up your driveway to get to, let's say, an electric line underneath it. But what you can't do is put a house over that. And where easements can get really tricky is if you're buying property and they're running across it, across the center of it, diagonally across it. I have seen these situations before where, out here in Dallas-Fort Worth, we had a big natural gas boom years ago. There were a lot of developments that were a little further out where these gas wells and transfer lines were kind of littered throughout these pastures. Developers come in, do these developments. Well, you still have these gas wells and these transfer lines. For the most part, they design these things so that these easements are on the side of property, but you're going to occasionally have one that cuts right through the middle of the property. And those can become incredibly difficult to build on because you've taken all your buildable area for the house and you've really, scrunched it down. Imagine a utility line cutting right through the middle of a lot. I've seen those, and people ultimately, it's the last lot that sells, and they'll, design some little house that has a compact footprint that fits on it. But I've seen people either almost buy lots or actually buy lots, and they did not understand some of the easements that they had on the property were going to cause them problems building. I even came across a property in the suburb I actually live in and my office is in a few years ago. It was a nice property that had a cell tower on it, and that thing had easements coming at it every which way. And the city actually told us they would not allow a house to be built on it unless one or two of those easements were abandoned. That's a process where the owner of the lot would have to go back and deal with those utility companies and essentially have those easements removed. The buyer I was talking to just smartly decided to back off from buying that lot. So easements are really something to pay attention to. You can't see them when you're standing out there for the most part. There may be some kind of marker that there's a gas line easement or something, but for the most part you can't see them. The house or the lot may look great. It's only when you are looking at a survey or a survey plat that shows you where those easements are. So you always want to get those before buying a property to make sure what's on it. You also may have build lines to deal with. Depending on the type of lot, where it's at, it may be an acreage property where this isn't even a thing you have to worry about, but you're buying a lot, let's say in a subdivision, well, they will have what they call setbacks, building setbacks. Hey, your home cannot be any closer than 30 feet to the street. And maybe your side build lines, you can't be any closer than 10 or 15 feet on each side. So that can take what looks like a lot that may be 100 feet wide and really makes it an 80-foot wide lot, buildable area. Same with the depth of a house. So you do want to know what your build lines are when you're looking at these properties so that you know how wide and how deep your house can be. You can have a case where you're buying a smaller city lot and you want to build a bigger house on it. It may not fit, or it may need to be really a substantial 2-story, and maybe you were thinking you wanted a 1-story. So these are the kind of things to really pay close attention to. They are on generally property surveys, something we call survey plats for neighborhoods, which is just a survey of the whole neighborhood. But you do want to get all that information before you buy a property. The last thing I'll talk about is drainage. Drainage is obviously something to be very concerned about. If you are buying a big property, especially if it's acreage, generally drainage is not going to be an issue. Even here, Dallas-Fort Worth, where it's pretty flat, we still have slope. In some cases, we have some hilly areas, but even on relatively flat lots, when you have enough room, you can create what we call swales, which are little areas of low spots that will take water away from a property. It is when you are on these tight city lots that you have a limited amount of space. And so you need to see if the neighborhood has a drainage plan. Sometimes with these bigger lots or older lots and old subdivisions that do not have drainage engineering, just know you will have to get what's called an engineered drainage plan for the house you're going to build. So a lot of these properties we build on, we have to go contact an engineer, civil engineer, who will do a layout. They are basically showing us where the drainage needs to be, how high our slab, the elevation top of slab needs to be, called the finished floor, and all that gets sent to the city for the building permit. So to summarize, these are the things you need to pay attention to when buying property. I have seen people make decisions on buying property when they didn't understand all the things at play, like these easements, and it caused them some problems later on. I will say, if you are buying a property and already talking to a builder, allow the builder to help you with it. I offer to look at properties for people all the time, and I'll say, look, I'm not going to charge you anything. I just don't want you to buy something you're going to have a problem with, or maybe your expectation of what's involved with building on that lot, you need somebody to look at it for you that has a professional eye. I've had plenty of people tell me, oh, it's really flat, and I go out and look at it, and it's far from flat, and I have to explain, this lot is going to add some cost to your build. So, it's helpful if you have somebody that knows what they're doing, look at the lot with you, same with the survey. So, good luck finding a property. If you're in Dallas-Fort Worth, give us a call. We can help you out with it, and if you're somewhere else in the country, just, dot your I's and cross your T's when it comes to buying property, and good luck with your custom build.